Yes, it does. I mean, I expected a little worse, and then he was saying, well, we could make it this big, and I couldn't picture it, and it's like, oh my God, it's like another friggin' room in my house. Yes. Yeah, all the same training. Now that I'm changing the look, that's what I've been told by several people. That's what I should have, one of these trailers.
Just a minute more here. I think a couple of people are coming in.
It would be green with the gray guys, so it would look more natural.
Looks like it's about time for us to get going. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the first meeting of Healthy Pine River in 2026. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season, Happy New Year, and that everything was joyous. I have a 2-year-old, so it was both kind of difficult and very awesome, I would say. We traveled to the West Coast, so that was also kind of difficult, but kind of joyous too as well. So, that is what it is. Anyway, welcome. 2026 is going to be a really big year for Healthy Pine River, and I think for our community more generally. And that's for a lot of different reasons. But in particular, it is that we are going to be going through a process of evaluating the future of the State Street Dam. We're going to talk a lot more about that, but I just want you to sort of hold in your minds that this is really the beginning of what will ultimately happen with that dam, what kinds of decisions are made. And everything that people say and think and the feedback people give, the comments people give, will all ultimately go to that goal. So 2026 is going to be incredibly important to us for that reason. Of course, we also have a million other things going on. There's an education program that we'll be telling you about in February. There's going to be some really great stuff we're going to tell you about there, all sorts of things. But mainly, we'll be talking about the dam today. Before we do that, though, we do need to approve the minutes from our last meeting all the way back in November. Can I get a motion to approve? All right, can I get a second?
Second.
Can I get a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Somebody will oppose me eventually on this, so, anyway, it'll happen. All right. Next thing, just really briefly, you can see our financial statement there down at the bottom. I will just note that this does not reflect money that we are going to be using as part of the community engagement process for the dam risk reduction study that we'll talk about. That is actually held by the City of Alma, as they are the fiduciary for that grant. Are there any other comments from Treasurer about, yes?
Ben, I was just going to mention that the difference between the November balance and this balance is about $10,000. The reason for that is that Alma College finally cashed the check that we gave them many months ago for $89,000. Okay, so that's the rationale. So.
Yes, yeah. It does seem like a large drop, but really that was to pay for everything over the summer, and well, there's a whole story there. But anyway, but long story short, yeah, it just took a little while for the check to actually be cashed. So, are there any questions or anything from the treasurer about this? All right, excellent. Well, then we can move ahead to tonight's program. and I am really excited to have this start. Chuck, would you like to come up and sort of introduce things?
I had the good misfortune of writing the 2024 Eagle Dam Risk Reduction Grant that did not get accepted or approved or awarded to us. So when it became available again in 2025, I got a lot smarter. I also asked GEI Engineering out of Traverse City to co-author the grant with us, and so what we did from Healthy Pine Rivers look at the conceptual component of the grant, and GEI did the engineering components of the grant, which are far more sophisticated and well above my level. And the good news there is that the grant was approved. It is a $292,000 grant. Roughly $234,000 of that is state money, is Eagle money, and then the remaining roughly $60,000 is what we call in-kind money that organizations like Healthy Pine River, the city, the chamber, Greater Gratiot Development, all those folks who are involved in the planning process, those hours and services count as in-kind monies that can be associated with the grant. So that's part of our obligation in doing this. The reasons, why seek a dam risk reduction grant? And I'm going to just really quickly clarify. The state sees the State Street Dam as a non-functioning. This is a DNR and Eagle definition as a non-functioning significant hazard dam. Now, significant hazard shouldn't shake you up too much, because if you paid attention to what happened up north in Stanford and those areas, those dams were far more difficult shape than our dam is. We're not in that concern mode, but that's the state's definition, is a significant hazard, non-functioning dam. Okay, DNR has about many years ago had made a statement that they wanted to remove non-functioning dams in the state to allow greater fish passage, return the water environment to a more natural environment, et cetera, et cetera. So, but the reason that we got involved in this was really not to push anybody about whether the State Street Dam should stay or not stay. That really, it's a part of it. But what it's really about is what's happened the last 2 decades with the impoundment. The impoundment has significantly shallowed due to sediment drop. It's a top feed dam, so everything that flows down in the river, it drops sediment, does not go over the top. It's not a bottom feed dam where the sediment would continue to travel. It goes over the top. We've also watched, obviously, the contamination levels with phosphorus and nitrogen and E. coli are extreme, well above acceptable norms by the state of Michigan. And then also, we believe that the algal blooms, the increased vegetation has created an unsightly circumstance that we think impacts the use of our parks. We think it also ultimately impacts property values and home values of those folks who live on or near the river. And we have 2 neighborhoods who, both north and south of the river, are what's called QCT neighborhoods. They're neighborhoods that are actually impoverished by certain standards. And the parks that we have, the 4 parks that sit on the river, and the 5th park that's just a block off the river, those are great locations for neighborhoods, for kids, for families. And we think that they're being this is HPR's posture, we think that they're underutilized because of the condition of the river. So that's what really drove us to seek the grant, is what are the options what can we do? How do we correct this? How do we turn this dynamic around? And so that was Healthy Pine River's posture. Eric, thanks for being here. It's your turn. Now we're gonna hear from Eric Ripley, our city manager, as to how the city views the impoundment and the impact it may have on the city, so.
Just coming from the Amy Wright Restoration Committee meeting over there, so big nice group over there too, and they've almost raised $1 million.
Wow.
So they're right there. So keep donating. So good, exciting things. So like Chuck said, we all know that the potential benefit of what that river can be if it's in a better shape. The city owns what used to be iron and metal on the north side of the river. Many years ago now, moved that over to Williams Avenue, over in the industrial park area, and have done some demo and some cleanup, and we're ready for some redevelopment there. On the other side of the river, we have Riverside Park, which we just received a grant for, to rebuild our overlook deck there, the pavilion, and some other amenities in the park. And from my perspective, finally, now the park is done. That one will be all fixed and in pristine shape. And then, of course, we have the Riverwalk that runs along there, and those value of those assets are diminished with the look of the river. Also, from my perspective at the city, our water treatment plant that as part of GAWA, we work with St. Louis. That's our asset over there. It's a GAWA asset between Allen and St. Louis. Working together, we are now all on groundwater. Nothing is surface water anymore. But we still have an intake there for surface water off the river. We want to maintain that. Dave would know more of the technical stuff of that than I, but we want to maintain that in case of something just happens. Our plant is rated to take surface water. We don't want to lose that capability. So that's some of the feasibility that this study is going through too, is whatever happens, how do we maintain that intake, or what it would take to maintain the intake. It all comes down eventually dollars and what it would take to make that happen. The one option we don't have is to do nothing. We can't do nothing, because eventually that will all become a swamp if we just keep letting it continue on the way it is. So I hope through this process, and Chuck and I have had many conversations about this, that as a community we can come to some conclusions of this option is probably better than this option. I'd love to see, I don't know if anybody's been down in Ann Arbor and seen what they've done by their dam. They haven't taken the dam out, but they've done some other treatments to that to make it more recreational friendly. The aesthetics of it, everything, it's quite nice. There's some things like that we can do that would make it more user friendly for recreation. Is there modifications that we can make to the dam that will not only improve the quality of the impoundment, but offer those recreational opportunities that other communities have that are kind of nice and would be nice to have. So that's where we're hoping as a city, but we can't make that decision because we need everyone else to tell us that this is what they'd like to see. And then it really comes, the other part of it is those folks that live on the river that Chuck mentioned. It's really near and dear to their heart there, because obviously they look out the door, that's their backyard. Whatever we decide will affect that in some way. Is it going to be a smaller river, or are you moving the river this way or that way? Because if you do this with the dam or that with the dam, there's a lot of options according to our engineers, and all those options come with costs, dollars, to make it happen. But this is the first step, and for me it's exciting because we're moving forward, and you can't move forward until you know what everybody would like to see, and then what is possible from there. So, is there anything else I should hit on, Chuck?
I think you did great.
Okay. And then we hope, we have these plans that we did in 2004 for redevelopment on the riverfront, that until we do something with this river, and it won't be the same because times have changed and those sort of things for retail, and we've got the World Wide Web, which we really didn't have in 2004, the way we have it now. But something that could happen that's very similar to what we envisioned back then of the prosperity that would bring on the river, can't happen if the way the river looks right now. So That's it for me.
Thanks, Eric, I appreciate it. One thing that Eric alluded to that Healthy Pine River feels very strongly about is that water recreation has really diminished on the river. When you think about, and Gary, years ago, took me to a neighbor of his who had lived on the mill pond for 40 years. He told me a story about right out here behind our house, there's an inlet. It was filled with water, and they had a 24-foot pontoon boat there, and it was not uncommon for us to gather the neighborhood, put them on the pontoon boat, go out and cruise around the mill pond. He said that was common, not just for us, but for many people. And he said, as you can see, my dock is still there. There is no water. It's all ground. It's all terra firma now. And you can see what else we see, which is cattails and vegetation and algal bloom. So the point I wanted to make with you is that water recreation has changed drastically. And it's because of the degradation of the river over the last 2 decades. And Eric said something that's truthful that we don't want to hear, but it's really important that you take this to heart. It's moving towards a swamp, okay? In 2016, we had Bar Engineering come in and do a bathymetry study. 3 things we asked them to do. What's the depth of the sediment in the impoundment, in the mill pond? What's the depth of the water to sediment, okay? And where's the river channel right now? How can we plan things if we don't really know where it's so large? Where's the actual channel? And so paid them $10,000 to do that study, and we have that information now, okay? 6 feet of sediment in a lot of places, anywhere from 2 to 6 feet from the dam all the way up to Honeyway Creek, which is beyond the Eli Highway Bridge, okay? So fishing, canoeing, kayaking, swimming's a no-go because of the what we call the partial and full body immersion in water is unsafe for humans. Okay, the Michigan, forgive me, the Mid-Michigan District Health Department has signage up. So we know it's impacted water recreation. We still have some folks on the river. That's encouraging. There's still some fishing going on. There's a lot more kayaking, canoeing going up by Lumberjack Park, where it is cleaner, based on our testing results. So water recreation is a big part of what we see as part of the problem and what are the viable solutions. I'm not Michelle LaRose. If you saw Michelle back in September or October, you know she's a hell of a lot better looking than I am. And she unfortunately was going to be here, and then notified us yesterday that she was not able to make it. So what her job was tonight was to talk a little bit about the feasibility study. The grant is not about removing the dam or doing anything specifically with the impoundment. The grant is about looking at what are the options that we have that are available to us after we've studied the circumstance, and that allows then our citizens to weigh in, our city to weigh in on what direction do we go. So, and this is kind of what she said, the first step, before you get too far into the design phase and talking about removing a dam or doing this or dredging or whatever, she said you want to know what the real options are regarding hydrology, the dam, the impoundment, and what does the raw data tell us from testing and research. Triterra has been contracted and has already completed the sediment testing that GEI ordered, and they've completed the sediment sampling to get a feel for what's in the sediment. Is it heavy metals? Is there areas of concern in the sediment? That raw data has been passed on to GEI. It has not been analyzed to the point where it's going to come back to us yet, but it won't be long. The other thing that they'll be doing, though, is that they just got their model information from FEMA FEMA has a modeling program that talks about dams and floods, floodplains, et cetera. They now have just received the FEMA information so that they'll be able to put that information into a model to talk more about what are the dynamics of the dam, what are the dynamics of the hydrology of the mill pond, the channel and the flow, and those kinds of things, because they all factor into what our options are, okay? I'm going to read to you, just and forgive me, but this is what Michelle sent to me. The feasibility study is intended to look at a variety of options before moving forward with a design. The study is at the high level, but will give you enough information to understand if an option is possible, looking at hydraulics and hydrology, if an option is affordable based on high estimate levels, and if the option meets the goals of the city and Healthy Pine River and its citizens. In other words, how does it impact the natural resources, impacts on the public, et cetera. It makes sense to take this first step, the feasibility study, so you don't get too far into the design and then realize that you can't feasibly construct it due to environmental impacts, costs, or other reasons. So that's what we're doing, is we're asking them to help us understand what are the options to us and or for us. And so it's a 2-year grant. We think that GEI will be ready to give us the feasibility study back by next fall. So we think it's going to be a shorter process than initially. The state defines the length of time. GEI will define how long it takes them to get the information they need to share with us. And so that's the biggie right now. The beat goes on. Ben is going to chat a little bit about what this process is about, engaging our public, engaging our community, and that's a huge part of this. And if I can give you just 2 examples. We had a dam expert, a dam removal expert up here 2 years ago from Stanco out of Ann Arbor, engineer. And he said, you know, you can take the dam out, you can partially take the dam out, you don't have to remove it entirely. He said, and then I said, well, could we make an island, put our dredge there, and then so we don't have to haul it away? Because I will share with you that when we did the bathymetry study in 2016, the cost of dredging to 430,000 cubic yards in the impoundment, $23 million. There's nobody on earth that's going to give us $23 million to move the dredge. Now, I haven't talked to St. Louis yet, Josh, so maybe. But that's the dilemma for us. And so, again, it talks about, you know, what's feasible and what's not feasible. But he made an interesting comment to me. He says, you know, the island's going to fight the river. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he says, well, the river's flowing. You've put this island in the middle, and you've created shorelines that are very similar to what they are now. He said, but it's going to fight. There's going to be resistance there. He said, why don't you take the dredge and move it over here? And what he did is he showed me an area that is really a kind of a cove area, and he said, stack, if it's not serious sediment, if it's not hazardous, he said, stack it there, build that area up, utilize that property. So what I'm trying to share with you is that he's done things that I had never imagined, which was really encouraging. Eric alluded to, how do we protect property owners and their view, their shoreline, their property, what does reshaping the river mean, you know, to them particularly. So, and that's why we are doing the feasibility study. GEI will come back with that information and talk about, here are the possibilities. Here's what's viable. Here's what's probably not viable. Okay? You're a huge part of that process. So I'm going to turn it over to Ben because he's the community engagement guy, and it's a huge part of this plan. Thanks, Ben.
So just to sort of reinforce how important this is, so I've had several conversations with politicians and other people who might actually be able to move significant money on an issue like this. And what they always ask me is, well, what's the solution? What do we do about, so what do you want to do about the dam? And I become like a deer in headlights. Because I don't know. I'm not qualified to know fundamentally. That's not what I do. At the end of this study, I will have an answer to that question. I may have 2 answers to this question, or 3, or some prioritization. But at the very least, we will really know what an ideal outcome would be, and perhaps what a less ideal but more feasible outcome would be. That is a complete game changer when you have an issue this complicated. But a big part of that can sometimes be missed is what is it that the community fundamentally wants? It is your dam, after all. What should happen with it? So written into the grant is a pretty substantial fund for doing community engagement activities. And then I'm just going to kind of quickly run over what that's going to look like, see if anyone has any questions, and then we're actually going to do the first one. So we're starting tonight, everyone. It's exciting. Basically what this will look like is this. There will be a survey coming out in February. That is going to be basically a make your voice heard type survey. Like, a few fairly open questions. We just want to get some community comment. After that, I'm going to be running a series of focus groups. Right now, I'm kind of planning on doing one with the business community. I'm planning on doing one with the agricultural community, and one with people in communities immediately adjacent, neighborhoods immediately adjacent to the water. That's kind of my plan right now. There can be others. If you have ideas for other kind of groups that you think we should be getting into a room and talking to about this, let me know. I would love to do more, but that's just kind of what I've come up with. All right? From there, around the time we finish those up, GEI will hopefully have their initial report. That is expected sometime in fall. We don't know the exact date yet, but sometime in fall. When that happens, there's going to be a large-scale community meeting where this will all be presented. And then my plan is to take people through a kind of deliberation exercise to sort out the thoughts, the options, etc., that are presented. Finally, at the end of all of it, there's going to be a final, larger community survey, which will probably be something that will be mailing out to people. The first survey is going to be more, we're going to put up some posters with QR codes, distribute it by email, that kind of stuff. The last one will be a much more kind of rigorous scientific approach. And that is the basic plan. The hope is that then when the final report is presented, when Eagle receives it at the end of all of this, we will not only have what are the really good technical options, we will have a clear sense of what it is that people want, how they envision it, and how fundamentally, just like Chuck was saying, they envision it playing a role in their community. So, that is the basic plan for community engagement. And we are going to do a quick exercise with that. But before we get to that, and I promise it won't be too terrible, there are pieces of paper in front of you. I promise it'll be fine. Before we get to that, does anyone have any questions about anything that we talked about here? That's okay, we're going to get questions in a second. But if anyone has something that they're just like, I just don't quite get this, this is confusing to me, I don't understand this thing.
And just
It's
an
worth it.
additional.
Yes.
Talked about, Eric mentioned, I did that the impoundment could become a swamp, or will
Right.
become a swamp.
Yes.
I will share that some of the data that came back from Triterra's recent sediment depth is that in the last 10 years, is 2026 now, the first test was done in 2016, the sediment depth has increased from 1 to 3 feet everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, the sediment's alive and well.
And this is the reality, right? That this is not a static situation if nothing is done. I mean, we do know that is a choice, that you can always make as a community. You could not do something. The outcome of that is a swamp. And perhaps really not something that we would think of as the Pine River existing through our area. So, if there are no questions, let's do some group work. I want each table to quickly nominate a writer. I'll count to 3 and then point at a writer. 1, 2, 3. All right. Everyone have a writer? Okay, cool. We will switch the writer. We will switch the writer. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So what we're going to do is this really quickly. I'm just going to take you through 3 basic questions on this, and I want the writer to write it on this big sheet of paper, basically. Just take down people's comments and their thoughts. So my first question is, now we've talked about this, what are your concerns? What are you worried about? What is kind of bothering you, basically? So just have a conversation about that, and then the writer just kind of take down a few notes. You don't have to make notes of everything people say. Just try to give us a few bullet points, because this will all go back into the final report. All right? Go forth. I'll give you like 4 or 5 minutes to do that, then we'll do something slightly different. 3 questions. And for those of you playing at home, feel free to do it yourselves and send me an email. Sorry, I will say, not the best design for the live stream, but yeah.
Right, but will it be shallower? If it's got more of a flow and the dam wasn't there holding a lot of slack?
How low is the water?
Yeah. I know, but how do you say that? Contamination, loss of species, loss of pollution. Okay, what pollution is what did you just say? Something a little different.
Well, the first thing if it's slowly increased, it wash away the sediment, carry sediment.
Which will help.
Well, it'll find its own channel. Yeah, and take it again. That's what.
But like all the dead lily pads, instead of going down and sitting, go somewhere else.
Well, I think the river will just reestablish. Where is it? Huh?
The river's gonna do, yeah. Right.
They're going to dredge, are they going to build in different areas?
No, he just, yeah. Right. My understanding is one of the things that we're doing, we're just trying to dredging the river and filling in one across from us. And making that bigger over there so it pushes the water back to where the homeowners are. So we don't lose the frontage that they do over in Conservation Park. But they would plant trees and just make that, you know, pathway or something. That's a good point.
Got 2.5 minutes left, everyone.
But I'm still concerned about the big picture. I mean, I guess it's gonna sleep. Because there's a lot of areas that there used to be. I mean, where the cattails are, it was land, and I had swans there. I guess they didn't put it there were a lot more turtles or turtles. There used to be swans, frogs. I think I saw one frog last summer. Yes, but there used to be yeah. Yeah, because it looks like it's a perfect area. And then used to be able to look down and see all kinds of fish swimming around. Yeah, what happens to the birds? It's just more birds too. There's tons of
We got about a minute left.
oh, yeah. People down there probably be about 20, 30,000. Like every year it gets less and that's probably where they all are. It's like
All right. All right, that's about 5 minutes. I was actually really pleased to see how much people got out in that time. It's always amazing to me. Let's just go around really quickly and just hear from each table, just very briefly. Each table just give me one concern. Who would like to begin? This seems like a very talkative group, so I will start out with just one concern briefly.
One of the concerns we were talking about was just what we're passing out in the future, you know, kids and grandkids.
Yeah. How many other tables had something similar to that? Some sense of the future? Some resonances there? All right, let's see here. Let's go to the back corner. Cost. Absolutely. Right. A valid concern right there. Absolutely. Absolutely. How are we going to pay for this? 23 million was brought up. I don't think that's the option that we'll go with. But still, right? Entirely valid. Absolutely. All right. Let's pop to the front here. What did this group have? Just give me one concern.
All right, I'm going to throw this one out. I may get ejected from the meeting, but Is a swamp really that bad?
Oh, okay.
I
That's
mean,
interesting, yeah.
we've assumed that
Yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
along, but
Yeah, it's fair. What is it necessarily the worst sort of outcome? Absolutely. It's a valid question.
a
Yeah.
swamp is a wetland, which is a good thing.
Potentially, yeah. All right. What do we have? Back table.
Here?
Yes. Yeah.
Achieving community engagement.
Right. Right.
Levels of
Absolutely. Yeah.
community engagement.
It can be hard to do, honestly, through this kind of process. And I think you can certainly find examples where community engagement has not really fully taken place as people have tried to work through these processes. So it's well thought through, yeah. So what do we have up here?
We have a lot, but I still want just one. The value of property along the river.
Right. I mean, fundamentally, it's a major concern. Absolutely. All right, last but not least.
We talked about downstream contamination, changing the river. What does that look like for downstream as well?
This is a major concern, absolutely. This is the thing that always gets me when I do one of these things is that, I talk with people who do this kind of engineering professionally. You basically manage to identify all of the concerns that are the concerns that the professionals have too, right? I always appreciate that from this kind of a exercise. All right, next question. You can switch writers if you want, or keep the same one if they're comfortable. Up to you guys. But the next question is this. I want you to think about your hopes for the dam and for the Pine River, the impoundment. If you could sort of wave a wand, what would you want it to look like? And what would you hope would come out of dam remediation, doing something with the dam? All right? Give you about 5 minutes to think about that. All right? Go forth, do that.
I'd like to see new restaurants and shops with a regular river. They can find out the words. I think that's conservation park and improved trails. Right now you can walk part way and then it's a trail. Yeah.
Trees would you like to see?
Commercial river restaurants improvement to cities, funds. Yeah.
You know what, they had a limited amount of people while they had a, and then the hill, it was an amphitheater. Thursday nights. Festival there on Thursday night.
Is there like
Someplace in a festival or venues. And it doesn't have to be huge. Yeah.
About 30 seconds remaining.
there's so much, it's been so
No, we're good, yeah. All right, they're all right, let's pull it back together. All right, and this one, we probably need to get one from every table, but just name one or two. One or two tables you might like to share. What was a hope that you had for the future, maybe the future after something has happened with the dam? I heard laughter, which is always a good sign, so what do we have?
that the river is clear year-round instead of just April, June, October, November, and it freezes.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's, it's sort of that it remains clear seasonally. That's maybe a common one. Let's get one more out there. Another sort of hope that people have.
Like development of like commercial zones, restaurants, or like condos. There's anything that's on the river that, places like Rockford and things have.
Yeah. I was just out with in Bay City with my wife, and I think it was late November, and looking at their river walkway, which obviously is a little bit of a different scenario. I couldn't help but think to myself, you could put some of this in Alma, right? And that would be kind of an amazing thing. So absolutely great. Anyone else want to share? Go for it.
Well, it was kind of a late in the discussion here we came up with. We had a number of them, but it recognized as an asset. And
Right.
The reason that I mentioned there, it came to me is I worked for the city of St. Louis, and we rehabilitated the former IGA store that's right on the river, and the back deck, or you know, is on the river, and we treat that like something of value now.
Right.
For decades, many decades, I'm sure that was like a back alley.
Yeah.
Growing up with scrub brush and bags, and it carried over from the chemical manufacturing and the stigma of the river and things like that. And now there's reason to think that it's an asset to the community as it goes through. So.
Yeah. I think that's really true. And it, kind of underneath everything else people were saying, right? You know, that it really actually functions as an asset for the community. Absolutely. All right. Normally I take more time with these, but I don't want to keep people too late tonight because we have a couple of other little quick things to do. But last thing, now that we've talked through this process, what kinds of questions do you have that you would hope that this study would answer? What kinds of questions do you have about the dam, about water in the Pine River, etc.? It's the same thing. I'll give you, 4 or 5 minutes. Write down some questions.
You know, that's just, I was thinking, that's a big question, what's in the study? And like somebody else said, what about all the stuff that gets washed down? Is that gonna jump down and choke up the river, by the tip of the sea and say, they,
I don't think that
but if you take out the dam, how much is gonna keep going rather than staying in the element?
Like around the river. Yeah, we live in the river.
And we let it all go down and then go out in the bay.
and it's going to be in the end of the river so many times.
And actually, in St. Louis, does the plane keep on going every year? Is that the plane? So everything you can use down the other side to really get a sense of the time. Here's the house. There's nothing there. So we're using the house. I know it's kind of a yeah. So what I would like. Right, but so
Yeah, there's all kinds of.
but yeah, when they come but still in front yeah, for a little bit. And then the timber was and then it starts to turn into.
We've got about a minute left.
And you can spend all kinds of no offense. Stream and have 4 different names.
Alright, here we go. Alright, so questions I think are mostly things that we want to pass on to GEI and that kind of stuff. Does anyone have one that they just wrote down and they were like, oh wow, yeah, we need to figure that out? It's got something. Anyone want to share a question?
It's a concern and a question. It's
That's fair.
what's in the sediment.
Right.
Is it toxic? It would be a major factor.
Yeah.
And we're gonna know that reasonably soon. Testing's been done, they just haven't done the analysis, it's not finalized yet.
Okay.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, but we that should be one of the first things we know, actually. So this is good, right? Some of this I think people already have. Does anyone have a question they feel like no one's thinking about or asking? Just out of curiosity. Yeah, go for it.
I'm just curious, like, we know what the impoundment looks like, but we wanna know, where's the actual river in the impoundment?
Right.
You know, where, how wide is it? Where does it actually go through? If somebody could show me from an aerial map, and here's the water where it is, but here's where the river goes.
Our engineering has given us that. Unfortunately, it's not a beautiful GIS that they have. When you look at the river coming down, they can, let's say it's blue. In red, they'll show you the actual change. We do have that information, so.
He's gonna want to talk.
I mean, I do think this is one of the most sort of an interesting question, right? You know, like what would happen if the dam just wasn't there, right? I mean, none of us have a memory of this, right? You know, what it would actually mean. So that is interesting. And whatever happens with it will certainly be a change.
That's a huge part of the hydrology, so that if you know where the channel is, you know some of the properties that you have some opportunity to do things with, if in fact that's a part of the plan. So that's a huge part.
Absolutely. Let's hear it. I think there was one more hand. Is there a hand over here? Last one more? Okay. All right. Yes. All right. As a former teacher, I'm very sensitive to hands. If somebody brushes their hair, if somebody, I will call. Okay. Well, great. So thanks so much for taking part in this. I'm going to get an image of all of these, and they will all go into the final report, and they will all become part of the community engagement report ultimately. So if you put anything fun on there, it's a public record now. Good job. But your names aren't on it, so it's all good. Don't worry. Anyway, but thanks so much for doing this. Just a last couple of things. I know we're about out of time here. I just wanted to say really quickly, just a note of thanks. So over December, actually on December 10th, we turned in another Eagle grant to fund basically to fund the development of a farm engagement initiative. We don't have an answer yet on that. We won't find out for a bit on that. But I think I should just sort of recognize the people who really made that happen. Of course, Chuck, Maddie here in the back, Brittany, everyone kind of came together during the busy time of year, put something together that I think I was really proud of. So everyone give them a round of applause. And finally, did you want to talk about the Friends campaign?
Oh, sure. If we have your email address, you'll be getting it's 2026, so it's time for our membership drive. And our membership drive changed last year. What we're asking you to do is to consider the $5 dues, or consider some leveled dues that are above that. There are 3, 4, or 5 different levels, all the way up to $250. And I appreciate you giving us that much. Okay, so can I get a? Yeah. We made about $6,000 in dues last year, and the beauty of that is that funds water testing, it funds farm engagement, it funds the education programs that are going into the high school and middle school, and the Forest Hills Nature Center. It funds our septic outreach that has now touched about 400 homes in 4 rural communities. We're looking at a 5th community coming up this spring and summer. So that's where those dollars go. And then we will start our Friends campaign, which is aimed at businesses and organizations that we were successful in last year. And that's kind of what provides the fuel to the motor and keeps us going. So please give thought to helping us out. So other than that, anything else? Motion to adjourn? So second? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Thank you for being here a bunch. Appreciate it.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Lord called me yesterday. Lord called me.